think I have a little more understanding than might had I not had these personal experiences. This diary is actually what I kept in the...
Harry Friedman M.D. The picture says it all. At first glance, it appears to be a picture of Harry dressed in his University of Minnesota academic gown of maroon and golden gopher colors. The picture, like the man in real life, draws you in for a closer look. As I do, I find myself returning the smile on Harry's face, the one that begins at the corner of his lips, reaching up to an almost mischievous twinkle in his eyes. Sitting atop his balding head is his University of Minnesota baseball cap, the one you'd expect to see Harry wearing on the golf course. This, then, is not an academic gown, but an athletic sweater he is wearing. This must be a picture of Harry Friedman, the sports enthusiast. Yet it makes a little difference, for whether it's in the world of sports, medicine, or life itself, you could always count on Harry to take the complicatedly complex, and with the warmth of his signature smile, render it with uncomplicated clarity and meaning. From the importance of academic scholarship to the joy of making a difference in people's lives, it was all there. The Harry we love so dearly, a man of quiet confidence, who knew how to take time for fun. Over his 96 years, there are so many memories of his acts of loving care. Like the days when, as a field surgeon during World War II, he found time to send home to his young niece, Myra, dolls from all the countries he traveled, becoming not the father she didn't have, but the loving uncle every one of us needs and cherishes. Minneapolis was Harry's home, and in so many ways is the home where Harry shall be long remembered. I know this from the way people would react when I would say that Harry was Myra's and my uncle. Harry Friedman, would come the reply. Harry Friedman, he's my eye doctor. What a mensch. Harry was, in every sense of the word, and at all stages in his life, he was a mensch. If he was your orthopedist, it was not just your eyes that brought a look of concerned interest across his kindly face. It was you that he wanted to know. It was almost as if he believed that until he knew what worried you, he couldn't know what troubled your eyes. His "How are you?" was rarely a query of casual interest. When you were with Harry, for that moment, you were all that mattered. Harry Friedman, the only American-born child of an immigrant family, was the youngest of 7 children. His father, learned and respected, was from a long line of rabbis ordained in Eastern Europe. Living near Odessa, the family's history was unique, though information of life in Russia is sketchy at best. What is known is that the family name was Melamed, meaning teacher in Hebrew. Samuel Melamed had divorced his wife and married Mary, who was herself a divorcee. The son of the first marriage, whose name was also Sam, came to join his mother in America and was adopted by her second husband, a man named Friedman. Sam, taking the family name Friedman, came to make his home in Minneapolis. While living in Minneapolis, he brought his father and stepmother Mary to America. Out of gratitude for the opportunity of coming to America, they all took on the family name Friedman. The newly founded American Friedman family's beginning were at best humbly poor. Harry's father was a rabbi, earning his way as a shochet, ritual slaughter, and a moil. According to a family legend, the children had only one set of clothing, which mother washed and ironed each night for school the next day. They may have been poor, but they were proud and could easily have posed for the poster picture of the 20th century American Jewish success story. Of the 7 children, one became a dentist, another a lawyer and engineer who designed the dome on the famed Minneapolis Catholic Cathedral, another an ophthalmologist, another a surgeon, and yet another a member of the United States President's Commission on Youth, as well as nationally recognized by the United Synagogue of America, all finding their way to some level of higher education. World War II played a significant role in Harry's life. In the late 1930s, while at the University of Minnesota Medical School, Harry had an opportunity to join the Army Reserves and have much of his school costs paid for. Even though he badly needed the money, he refused to join the Army Reserves, for he viewed himself as a conscientious objector to war. Hitler changed all that.
Hitler unleashed his blitzkrieg.
The newly minted Dr. Harry Friedman enlisted and found himself stationed at the famous Mearsfield Eye Hospital in London just before D-Day 1944. He crossed the Channel and went ashore at the body-strewn Omaha Beach 2 days after D-Day. Dodging the shelling of his field hospitals, the Germans didn't show much respect for the Red Cross that marked their tents. Harry did his best at saving lives. At war's end, Harry finally stood face to face with a real reason for his conscientious objector status turned soldier when he entered the concentration camp at Bergen-Belsen just after it was liberated by the British.
We came into Bergen-Belsen, and you see the bodies all over the place. There's the striped uniforms. You see pieces left thrown in among the bodies, and they're crematorium, unintentionally together. You see the arc around there, that's the crematorium. Street cleaner in Hanover, Germany. She was previously the interpreter.
Following the war, Harry went in search of an ophthalmology residency, a search that almost took him to Israel and a residency at Hadassah Hospital. The famous Dr. Yaski, who was tragically killed in an Arab ambush of his medical convoy attempting to reach the hospital on Mount Scopus, had personally invited Harry to study with him at Hadassah Hospital on Mount Scopus. Harry would have accepted Dr. Yaski's invitation had he not already accepted a residency in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he never forgot how close he came to the same tragic fate as his mentor. Harry once spoke about this and several other wartime close calls with death, such as the time during the war Harry was writing a letter home when one of the officers came to his room inviting him to a big party in the nearby castle. He said he would join them as soon as he finished his letter. Shortly thereafter, there was a big explosion. A German bomb hit the castle, killing and wounding many of the group that Harry would have been in had he not waited to finish the letter. Harry often spoke of these incidents in terms of his religious faith and deeply felt gratitude. In the last years, he would kiss the mezuzah on the doorway of where he was living every time he crossed the threshold and say how fortunate he felt for the blessings of his life.
Like the corners of my mind.
And speaking of blessings, one of his greatest blessings happened when he was at his Cincinnati residency. It was in Cincinnati, Ohio, that he met his soulmate, Gert Reutenberg. Aunt Gert was Harry's rock. Not that he needed an anchor, but she was a perfect mooring partner to Harry. Gert, like Harry, had come up the hard way, Largely abandoned by her family, she was raised at the Cleveland Jewish Orphans Home. Together they formed the Harry and Gert Partnership, a team that was looked upon as the rudder which brought the family ship direction, reliability, stability, and predictability. Permit me a personal note. Aunt Gert played a significant role in Myra's growing up years, often as a trusted confidant, providing a much-needed reality check to her adolescent years. It was Gert who led Myra to Cincinnati, where Myra followed in Gert's footsteps as a social worker. It was in Cincinnati where Gert met her life partner, a young medical resident, Harry. And it was in Cincinnati where Myra met her soulmate, a young rabbinic student. Harry and Gert's wedding date, August 29th. And so it is for Myra and me.
In diapers, report cards.
Speaking of predictability, you could set your watch, if not safely bet your life, on the fact that Harry would be promptly late for everything. The family would often kid Harry, saying, Harry, you're going to be late for your own funeral." By the way, did anyone notice the time the funeral actually started? Harry's lateness, there were lots of reasons. One of my favorite is the comment he would make to an anxious patient who had waited a long time to see him. "I never look at my watch," said Harry, "when I'm with a patient." Harry Friedman, the physician. Harry's longtime partner and the doctor who took over his practice, Dr. Aaron Nathanson, said, "Harry showed me what being a physician really means in caring for patients and their families. He set an example on how to listen, how to explain, and how to care for patients both medically and emotionally. He also pointed out that keeping up with the changing technology and medical advances is a mandatory part of medicine. He set an example by attending clinical rounds and journal club up through his 80s. The practice of medicine has changed dramatically since Harry, but the basic doctor-patient relationship, according to Harry Friedman, is still the cornerstone of quality care and is what is the legacy of Harry S. Friedman, M.D. Harry's story cannot be told without our remembering the second of two very important women in his life, Harriet Fingerman, wife of Harry's longtime friend and colleague, Dave Fingerman. A footnote to Harry's story is due. Dave Fingerman and Harry were high school buddies, lab partners in medical school, and when Harry first went into practice, he saw his first patients in Dave's office. Gert and Harry and Harriet and Dave were friends together. After both Gert and David died, it was only natural for the survivors of this foursome to rekindle the love each had known, bringing together two families as one. Harry would often say, "I was twice blessed."
I'm just wild about Harry, and Harry's wild about me.
It was hard not being wild about Harry, as Bill Wolpert's mother would sing and play every time she was near a piano. Harry had an exceptional capacity to connect. He could meet a complete stranger, and in minutes that stranger would be telling Harry his, or more accurately, her, complete life story. Not that Harry was a flirt or anything.
And Mandy's wild about me.
did we let the years go by?
Harry had the capacity to speak with children and loved to do so. Just ask his sons and daughter how it was growing up with Dad. They would tell you about how their dad would take them on Saturday medical rounds, and he also would play catch with them for hours. Sometimes he clearly got as much pleasure as they, but even more so of how he taught them to swim in Minneapolis' many lakes in the summer, and in winter to ice skate at Linden Hills. Going tobogganing with Jeff with no idea how to ride a toboggan. Only years later they were to learn that their fearless dad hated to swim and feared the water and hated skating nearly as much as swimming. But it was part of his definition of fatherhood not to let his own fears get in the way of what he thought would be important to his children.
We were a family.
I sat in the middle.
Life was simple. Now it is changing too fast.
How did we let the years go by so quickly? This cannot be our last goodbye so quickly. Wasn't it yesterday when I was small? So much I want to say.
Children loved Harry, and even as Harry's memory began to fade, and after Harriet died, Harry moved to Boston, to a wonderful facility on the grounds of which there is a day school. The children would often come and visit with the elders with memory problems. And not surprisingly, the staff reported that after each visit, all the kids wanted to visit Harry, who was their favorite.
Life was simple then. When we were young, it was so simple then. And lots of fun.
Speaking of memory, during most of his life, Harry made it his business to remember. And what he didn't remember, Aunt Gert would remind him of. And if all else failed, there was his little black book, a source of information that today would make Google information systems only dream of matching as its go-to for all you need to know. I never saw what was in it, but who here had not witnessed Harry consult his second Bible? And Harry knew and remembered every birthday, anniversary, and every other significant event in your life.
Yesterday, when did
With Harry's passing, a chapter is closed on a very unique human being that among his many accomplishments leaves the legacy of a man who was often more concerned about the well-being of others than himself. To a fault, Harry cared about, worried over what was troubling you. Of this characteristic, emblematic of the Friedman family, I shall return later. Harry's awards, accomplishments, and contributions in the field of medicine were widely known and well respected by his peers. In the 1940s, Jewish doctors were not admitted to the medical staff of Minneapolis hospitals, so Harry helped found Mount Sinai Hospital in Minneapolis, and later served as president of its medical staff. He served as president of the Minneapolis Eye Society, president of the Minnesota Academy of Ophthalmology and Otolaryngology, vice president of the Vision Foundation at the University of Minnesota, clinical professor of ophthalmology at the University of Minnesota, and sponsor of the Friedman Resident Research Award in Ophthalmology at the University of Minnesota. In 2002, he was awarded the George T. Taney M.D. Humanitarian Award by the Minnesota Academy of Ophthalmology. If you really wanted to get Harry started on what he was personally most proud of, beyond his family that is, and beyond his golf and his hole-in-one achieved at the age of 85, it was his love for basketball. In his youth, he was quite an accomplished player, both on the baseball diamond and on the basketball court. He was well known as a star basketball player at the Emmanuel Cohn Center and then the Southside Neighborhood House. He was a forward on the championship North High School basketball team that in 1933 won city, Twin City, and regional championships, only to lose in the state finals to Red Wing by 3 points. I tried to research old newspaper clippings of that famous game. Though I found none, I can imagine the radio announcer recounting the last seconds of the game.
The guy is absolutely amazing any night, but tonight he's in a world all of his own. Unbelievable.
He is flying in his own solar system tonight, Stu.
North High has the ball. The point guard dribbles the ball down the court, stop, eyes the basket, shoots. The ball hits the rim. The forward, Friedman, throws himself into action, leaps all 5 feet and some inches, grabs the rebound. He hesitates, weighs his options, as if trying to make a decision. Today, in some family album, somewhere, there is a picture of that North High School basketball team, and sitting proudly in the second row is Harry Friedman. My sons will long remember the summer when Uncle Harry challenged them to a pickup basketball game. The look on their faces said they would have liked anything but to shoot hoops with this old uncle. But when Harry left their butts dragging on the court, they learned not only where their athletic ability came from, but that their old uncle still had a thing or two to teach them about sports. Harry was the consummate teacher, both in the classroom and out. With his razor-sharp mind, not a detail was ever left unexplored by Harry's unquenchable thirst for knowledge. He wanted to share this enthusiasm with you, often with unique results. Like the time when he was in medical school, he began learning the human anatomy by dissecting cadavers. No sooner did he get home than he began demonstrating this newfound knowledge to his cousins, siblings, and whomever he could get his hands on, marking up their bodies with colored ink, so that soon all his living cadavers had revealed to the world what and where their organs dwelt. I personally was to experience Harry the teacher on the golf course. A highlight of my family summer vacations to Minnesota would be golf with Harry at Oak Ridge Country Club. These were wonderful outings with my favorite uncle, and always to include numerous tips on how to improve your golf game, which mine always was in need of. Here is where the Friedman family characteristics of always putting the needs of others first and never bending the rules were something to experience. Harry obeyed rules, as his children will remind you how he sometimes irrationally insisted upon them. As I was to discover with Harry on the golf course, these characteristics, when taken one at a time, may be admirable, but when taken all together and taken to a Friedman fault, Gewalt. Explain. Many times when Harry would invite me to play golf, he'd also invite his younger son Jeff to join us. For Jeff and me, golf was a game to have fun, a game to play. For Harry, golf may be fun, but it is, like most everything else in Harry's life, a challenge to be seriously dealt with. As the scene unfolded, you only can begin to imagine what our mischievousness did to Harry, especially if he felt, heard, or saw that we just might be holding up a foursome playing behind us. And it made no difference if that foursome was real or imagined, for Harry was always concerned about not getting in the way of those playing behind us. I'll leave the rest of the story to your imagination. Or how about the time Myra and Gert were invited to play with Harry and me? Two of them thought that the golf course was a place for an afternoon of conversation and relaxation. And Harry? Well, we never did that again. But when all was said and done, Harry could recognize his own frustrations and foibles for what they were, even the one about having difficulty in making decisions. The family would be unmerciful about this. Harry, they would say, Harry, you can do microsurgery, but deciding how to boil an egg? Harry could laugh at himself, leaving us with a wonderful image of his pixie grin that seemed to say, "If I can give you a little pleasure and laughter, even at my expense, I'm happy to do so." There are so many word pictures, so many memories that speak volumes of this man whose life we celebrate. A man who never gave up. A man who faced his fears and dared them to just try and stop him from being the healer of body and soul. A man who taught not merely with words that spoke of love and devotion, but with acts of kindness and endless selfless energy. A man of science and technology who never forgot that healing begins with the softest of touch and the gentlest of words. A man who, as a medical doctor, saw firsthand the blood and guts of war, and as a Jew, the sacrilege of hatred, when he was one of the first American soldiers to stand at the gates of Bergen-Belsen. A man who, with a twinkle in his eye, could make you forget your own worries and frustrations. A man who never stopped thinking of us. A man a few were privileged to call father and grandfather. The man more of us could call uncle and friend. The man who helped restore not only sight, but who encouraged so many not to lose their vision, is the man who in our memory will live forever.
This Knights house, that's where we lived in Chester, England, until before the invasion. And we had some clever guys in our unit among the doctors. You see the stethoscope and the scissors and the beer, so forth. And Knights come out and spit in the fight. We were called the Knights of in our unit book. They had all kinds of stuff. They had laugh. They had it. And this is VE. And I think I had hair before this happened, and I'd like to get, I think I have more right to get service connection for my hair loss. Allowances that have been given to some of the people. Most of them are, unfortunately, I'm not in touch with all of them. We lived together through a lot. This is the real VE Day. There's Witchigration. How do you like that? Any of you would like to take care of it? This was one of our men, actually. And on the next picture, what happened? This is the other side, and this is what I thought I'd show you. Brand, that was one of our medical administrators that you're laughing at. And they had a not for publication, and we were in Stralinger. That occurred. Luckily, it was on there because I would not remember that. This is the German prisoners that were taken nearby. I'll forget that. Those shoes, sometimes it's so old to have a little bit of vacation over at this point, and this was, and this gentleman escorted us. He knew what was going on there. What did I do? Yeah. Well, you had a laugh. You had a laugh sometimes, and the Kaiser helmet, and everybody took their turn and took a picture of themselves.